What is going on, everyone? Welcome into Road Graders. It's the Friday, week 3 edition of Lunch with the Boys. Spenny's doing Pilates somewhere. He might be joining us. He might not be. I don't know what time Pilates class ends down there in downtown Baltimore, but I am joined by the other member of the Jumbo set on the Exit 52 podcast. It's Jake Luke. Jake, my man, how is it going?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be joining this channel, which not to put it out there or anything, but I kind of gave the name for.
100%. So for folks that don't know, when I wanted to rebrand because one guy doing two guys watching football, there's a lot of questions about the validity of that name. So I decided to do I decided to do a rebrand, and it was Mr. Luke that came up with Road Grader. What was the other one? We had a couple.
I don't remember. I just remembered the one that I came up with, and I'm like, wow, what a genius I am.
It really was.
Yeah.
I love it. So thank you for that, sir. Your commission check will be in the mail. And so we are going to be cutting up some of the key things around the Ravens Colts. Obviously, some big news just broke. Anthony Richardson didn't practice again today. So it's going to be likely the Gardner Minshew mania coming to Baltimore on Sunday. Also, obviously, was it referred to as a tropical storm at this point? Tropical storm?
I think so, yeah.
So tropical storm will be entering Baltimore area on Saturday, if I understood the path correctly. So me and Jake are just looking at the weather right now, and I had to switch to the other system because I say kilometers, not miles, so no one ever knows what I'm talking about. So Saturday, it's looking way worse. So you got 21-mile-an-hour winds with 31-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and about 1.5 inches of rain. But then on Sunday, it's going to calm down a little bit, down to 15-mile-an-hour winds, 22-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and only 1/4 inch of rain. So, what do you think? Who benefits the most between the Ravens and the Colts with the impact of this weather? Because I feel like any other year since 2018, I would have said Baltimore, but I'm not so sure. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, if nothing else, like when you're talking about play styles and like who's going to run the ball better, and I think that's what you're alluding to there. I just think the Ravens offense is just more talented than the Colts, like straight up. So if anything, it just kind of levels the playing field out at the very least. And I think it does benefit the Colts, certainly. And like, you're not going to have an Anthony Richardson run heavy attack, at least as far as quarterback runs go anyway. So I don't know, man, has a potential to just kind of muck things up a little bit. And Lamar Jackson, not the biggest mutter I don't think we've ever seen. So
no, it reminds me of that New England game, was that 2020 or 2021?
It was 2020. It was after the Dustin Johnson won the Masters. I remember that very.
That's right. And that one, I remember being like, this benefits us for sure. We got, a run attack. We got a quarterback that is the best runner in NFL history. Of course, this benefits us, and it didn't. We ended up losing that one. So, I mean, again, it really comes down to total talent. I think it's the biggest threat, and we're going to get into it a little bit more specifically, is Indy's D-line. And I think, but again, in this context, they're more of a pass rush unit. DeForest Buckner is the complete package. So, I mean, not so much comment to him, but I think that group is a really good pass rushing group that's about 7-8 guys deep. Run stopping, not quite the same type of force. It's not like a Philly D-line, a Tampa D-line, that sort of thing. So I think Baltimore could be able to run on these guys, and it should benefit us. But, taking away Anthony Richardson's ability to run and inserting Gardner Minshew, it will make their run game a little bit more one-dimensional, which I do think benefits Baltimore. So I would say overall, it probably in the overall odds benefits Indy more, just to level the playing field and take away, like, the most potent attack so far in 2 weeks has been the Ravens passing game, looking really good. So if you're dealing with those wind gusts specifically, I don't think it's going to be that rainy, but it's just going to be windy, and that can impact your ability to throw the ball deep. I remember that Bills 2019 game in Buffalo. I was there, and when we got there for warmups, they were just doing punts. And my God, the wind pulling some of those punts was absurd. And I remember that actually benefited Baltimore because Josh Allen threw a deep one. I can't remember who it was intended for, but the wind completely pulled it, and they had a step on the DB, would have been 100% a touchdown, and we ended up winning that one. And look who's joining, Mr. Pilates himself, Spenny. What's going on, brother? You have no audio. So Spenny, just to catch you up, we're just talking about the weather and who would benefit. So if you want to chime in there real quick with your thoughts, if you have audio.
If you have thoughts.
He has no audio and no thoughts.
It benefits the city of Baltimore, its fans, and a really great game day experience. Living in a mid-Atlantic tropical city like Baltimore, just constantly being under the great impressions of Mother Nature. So the real winner here is Baltimore, the city, the people, the civilization.
The fans. The big ticket fans. Okay, so let's move into, obviously, Anthony Richardson not going to be playing, Gardner Minshew, two very different types of quarterbacks. How does this impact the way Mike Macdonald is going to prepare for this game?
Jake?
I don't know, man. I mean, it's just one of those things where, like, you got to think he had an entirely different one drawn up for Richardson. He had to have, because, like, looking at the stuff that they were doing, and Spencer and I talked about it last night, like, it felt like Steichen really had a very clear plan for what he wanted to do with the pieces that he was given and that he already had on the roster. And he built it up into this kind of like young Cam Newton, we're going to use this guy as a battering ram type thing. And not even just that, like, I think Richardson has a lot of like sideline to sideline speed. He can make some pretty quick cuts and things like that. He's quicker than people give him credit for. So they were kind of using him as that tank in the run game that everything was centered around, especially when Jonathan Taylor is sitting out. And you've got Zach Moss, and you're relying on him as kind of your go-to guy in the meantime. It just feels like that was an entirely different offense. Minshew can move around a little bit, but my God, like, we've seen him come to Baltimore and play some of these games, and he's just he's a lot more limited athletically. So I think that is really going to affect their game plan. And I think McDonald is maybe going to have to throw some stuff in the trash, but I think he'd much rather face Minshew than Richardson, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that Steichen's offense is, what's the right word? Malleable across personnel, very much so. I think it has the spread elements that a lot of quarterbacks are comfortable with in today's game. It has the run concepts that keep a defense honest and make them respect the ability to be multiple in that sense. And Minshew, minus 1,000 for me if you want, sure, but is kind of similar, I would say, stylistically to Joe Burrow, right? He can move a little bit. He's not nearly as consistent moving through the pocket, things like that. I would say the areas they want to put the ball are somewhat similar. The arm talent, somewhat similar. I think obviously Burrow has a little more between the ears and is capable, whatever. I don't even need to explain that. But with that said, the thing that we talked about yesterday is, the Ravens have offenses in a place right now where you really just, they make you play their game. They put the lid on. They make you throw in front of the safeties, and it's tough to run the ball on them. They make you throw to the middle of the field, and then they've invested a lot of their resources on the defensive side of the ball to talent in the middle of the field. So you have to beat good players, and they make you throw at good players. You can't, if you let them, if Gardner Minshew, you let them, the Ravens being them, dictate how you're going to play, they're going to win. They're going to beat you. They're going to win defensively. So I think it's a little bit of a similar game plan to what Zach Taylor has set up in Cincy. I think Steichen is a much more expansive offensive mind than Zach Taylor is. I think Taylor is a little more simple, relies on talent and intelligence of his players to make good decisions, where Steichen is a little bit more schemed and postured and kind of taking away some of that freedom for structure, I would say. So the key to me is just, can the Ravens, again, against Minshew versus Richardson, that run game is now gone a little bit. We saw Richardson have a touchdown early on against the Texans, able to go take off up the middle and add that element that's now gone. So that takes out a whole chapter, I guess, pillar of Steichen's offense that they had envisioned. But Minshew can manage probably a little better. He's a little more comfortable with some of the option route type stuff, I'm imagining, some of the IQ stuff involved. So I would think that it makes it a little easy going from a spread team to a spread team, from a mobile but not athletic quarterback. Like, it's not that they're not athletic, mobile but not dangerous, we'll say, Joe Burrow to Minshew. It's kind of a similar feel. And the Colts have less talent, but like I said, I think they have a better structure in place with Steichen. I would rather have Shane Steichen structuring my offense than I would have Zach Taylor.
And I think one of the interesting things as I've been diving into their trenches, looking at their O line, and obviously there's some big injury news to come out. Ryan Kelly's still in um, concussion protocol. That's a top 5, 7, 8, 9 center. So one of the better centers in the league. And Quentin Nelson hasn't practiced yet. I don't know if he has. I don't know if there's a report on today. Looked like a toe injury, but he might cut it off just to play. He's a little freak like that. So I'm imagining Q will play, but Ryan Kelly might not. And then they're putting in Wesley French. So, kind of down, obviously a downgrade there. But one guy that's been really surprising on their O-line is Bernard Raymond. Often talked about as a potential fit in Baltimore a few years ago. He was an overage prospect out of Central Michigan, if I have that right. Really impressed at the Senior Bowl. Really impressed throughout the process. He was a converted tight end, but I was always just kind of off of his game just because he was going to be 25 years old, and I was expecting, a top 64 pick on him. But he was always a pass protection specialist. So he's been playing really well at left tackle for them. It's the right side of their O-line that is going to be heavily impacted with Will Fries at right guard and Braden Smith at right tackle. That's where teams have kind of attacked, and it's a little similar to that Cincinnati D-line. And so I think a lot of people were had a lot of comments about the D-line last week, with the lack of a pass rush, but I don't think the ball is going to be coming out quite like it was, especially in that first half, where I think Next Gen Stats had it at 2.03 in the first half, which is like
I posted a clip of, I think there was like maybe 2 more pretty basic nickel looks that I didn't include just because it was the same look. But I basically posted every single look McDonald gave Burrow. Burrow held the ball for longer than that amount of time, like that 2 to 2.4 second range, maybe 3 times. Like,
and it's
he was getting the ball. And he was able to get some gains and stuff. Like they were able to go work Boyd and Higgins and stuff over the middle. But that is the question for Minshew. Can he operate with that level of rhythm and quickness with a shoddy offensive line, not Jamar Chase, T. Higgins keeping you honest? Tough.
I think that's the difference. It's going from those pass catchers to Michael Pittman, who's really good, but then you got Pittman, you got Josh Downs, and you got Alec Pierce. It's just not the same.
Colin Granson is a nice H-back type player too, but the difference as well is that they're going to be on the road and you can't manipulate the snap count, and the Ravens are probably going to be able to tee off a little more on top of that too.
And that's without factoring in the wind. So I'm like, if they have to run the ball, and I did a video on it because I thought it didn't get talked about nearly enough, especially on game day. But Travis Jones, Michael Pierce, and Broderick Washington wrecked shit. Like they absolutely dismantled that zone. Like they were playing so well that I was joking. That's actually how Owe got hurt, was because they couldn't move Travis Jones on that rep, and Jones basically threw a lineman into the back of his legs, which is such a Ravens injury, just to have someone collapse on you. But that Bengals interior offensive line, not good by any means, but probably pretty comparable to Will Fries and Wesley French. Quentin Nelson's a completely different story. I mean, he's all world at left guard, but again, will he play? What happens if he doesn't? So that'll be probably the biggest thing to watch.
And I think the biggest difference with if you get it sounds like we're probably not going to have Kelly, so that's a huge loss. But what the Bengals couldn't do was get off of a combo block and go reclimb to the second level. And then it's Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith. We see Roquan Smith and Ray Lewis breaking down tape. And it's like, if you don't block Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, they were both 4-star running backs. They are going to get your running back. They are completely fine to go clean, mirror the back, and square him up and hit him. So having Nelson being able to climb to the second level a little quicker, take better angles, things like that, I think is huge for them to be able to get 7-yard gains, maybe a couple 12-yard gains as opposed to 0, 2, 3, 5. If guys aren't getting to the second level, the linebackers are going to kill you. And I think Michael Pierce is one of the most underrated players in the NFL. I think that he has to be double teamed or he will end the play, particularly against the run. And really, he's not going to get sacks because he's quick. He's too quick for his mass. Like he can't change direction with a quarterback, but he will be in the quarterback's face. If you single block him, man him with a center, he's going to beat them and he's going to pressure the quarterback, and the quarterback's going to have to move. Then you have Matabike and Jones, who are freakishly athletic for their sizes, that will have single blocks. They will be able to play games and do all those kinds of things, and are going to be chasing the quarterback too. So it's a tall task without Kelly and Nelson. I think that's a big drop off. But like Jake and I said yesterday, it was like, I mean, you never know. You never know what the Colts backups can conjure up, but it's a tall ask, tall ask. We watched the Ravens with Mustafa and McCary go into Cincy and get the job done. So we'll see what they can do. But man, they're missing some talent that could make a difference on that side of the ball.
What teams would do for Patrick McCary to be on their roster? Jake, what do you kind of think about the impact that you've seen in the first 2 weeks from the combination of Queen and Roquan? Because it just looks, with these D tackles playing the way they are, like they are, like Spenny just said, almost impossible to get to in the second level. And the way they're filling right now, playing with confidence, playing fast, what are you seeing from them in the first 2 weeks?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was afraid of some drop off potentially, just because it was like so perfect at times last year. And yeah, I mean, what a journey for Queen. Certainly, he was playing. I think it's a little bit of mythology to say that Smith was the only thing that unlocked him. I thought he was playing pretty well before Smith came into town, but I don't know, man. This just feels like we're really at the peak of their powers right now, and there might be some slumps throughout the season. I mean, we're only 2 weeks in, but they've looked incredible, and I mean, it's looked pretty much like a supercharged version of what we saw last year, where it's Smith, and you saw him in the video with Ray Lewis talking today, and Ray was saying something to the effect of, I hate guys just lining up, staring straight ahead, and reacting to the play. I need them to be looking side to side. I need them to be communicating. We're seeing them do that with each other. We're seeing them do that with other players. I think Queen, on a professional and kind of a personal level, he's become a better communicator in that regard. I think he's become a little bit more confident is maybe the word, but it's maybe even just like less of like being self-conscious or self-effacing. Like he's just kind of, it feels like he's in a pretty good flow state right now. He's playing probably as good as like that hair on fire, run downhill kind of talent that we've seen, because he's just making the shoestring tackles that often he would miss, and he's not getting overrun by guys, and he's not getting juked out of his shoes, which we've seen at times. He's looked okay in coverage, I feel like, and you guys would know more about this than me. I feel like we've seen him in coverage a little bit less, which is nice, and it feels like Smith is kind of taking up that mantle a little bit, and he's done pretty well. So yeah, I mean, it's looked, I think, as good as we could have hoped for, and I just hope that it continues.
Reminds me a little bit when Daryl Smith came in and kind of stabilized the linebacker core, but this one's on steroids because of just the athleticism and the ceiling that these
Smith was there before Mosley, and then it felt like Mosley came in and he became what Queen is now, while Smith remained what Smith, ironically enough, is now for the Ravens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a joy to watch. And before we get into the offense, what are we thinking about the guys that are filling in on the backside? Like, Ardarius Washington goes down, so obviously we're expecting Millette to kind of step into the slot. Stevens has been playing a ton of outside corner, saw a ton of Jamar Chase. What are you guys thinking about that DB group? How are they performing? And what do you think of the matchups against obviously a lesser group, but still some guys that have some talent, especially some guys with some speed? Josh Downs and Alec Pierce can get vertical. How does that kind of play into going up against, Ronald Darby, Brandon Stevens, Rock Ya-Sin, and then Arthur Millette?
I think that Mike McDonald, I talked about him joking around saying, he's playing Madden. Like he's hiding these guys by rolling and rotating coverage so much. I don't even know what you guys said. I couldn't hear.
No, by the way, I mean, it was confirmed that we were close to the situation that you were correct that day.
No comment. But I think that McDonald is hiding these guys because, as opposed to being able to target a coverage defender, a Darby, a whoever, the quarterback is going through this whole kaleidoscope puzzle, like those little puzzles where you try to slot and slide things around from the pre-snap picture to post-snap. The linebackers, the safeties, the corners, they'll have a corner, rotate to a deep half. They'll have a slot, rotate to a deep or roll to a deep half. If they give you a single high look, it's probably going to be a two high look. Which guy is going to come down? Who is the rat? How is that coming? Is it field? Is it boundary? Is it strength of the formation? And it just feels like he's just playing like Mike McDonald is playing Madden. Like, I'm just going to hit the Y button and hit my stick to the left, and I'm going to have everybody shift towards the line of scrimmage. And then at the snap, they're all going to run away. Like, how's it happening? It almost like, I'm sure there's rhyme and reason, but there's a comment on here. from our boy Matt Mitz. But it feels like there's no rhyme or reason that I can pick up on. I was trying to figure out trips versus 2x2. What happens? Who rolls over? What direction? And I just can't. So like if somebody can figure that out, that'll help them figure out which corner you can go target, which DB you can go target. I just think there's such a multitude of things a quarterback has to process, and you don't know how to attack those corners. I don't think they look good. I don't think they look great. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were fucking them up. Burrow wasn't sure who was going to be on who. It's hard. It's tough to figure out. Like I saw Jamar Chase break off some hitches sitting at 10 yards and getting guys to like trip and stumble at the stem and not able to break on the ball. There was a couple nice plays. They filled in admirably. I don't want to take away from them completely, but like in summary, McDonald is hiding them really well. And that's why I think, again, if you want to beat the Ravens, you need to attack Kyle Hamilton. You need to attack Geno Stone. If you know they're going to sit in those deep halves, throw the ball over their head, make them run, make them make a play on the ball, see if you can get an explosive play. Just because they're sitting in the too high doesn't mean you can't throw it over their head still. It's like, again, McDonald is making offenses play his game. And if you want to beat them, which the first two teams they played didn't, they did the whole nickel and dime, throw digs, throw dagger, throw crossers, middle of the field. They did that. They get down into the red zone, and then it's a bunch of freaking warthogs up front. Patrick Queen, they have the sideline or the back line to protect them. And
the baby warthog.
Dude, Michael Pierce is it's like in Halo. It's like the fucking warthog coming through. Somebody's got a rocket launcher and a turret, and it's like it's gonna get you. So yeah, I mean, and guess what? I'm saying we have Mark in the comments. Spenny is just pushing his agenda so he can see a Kyle Hamilton interception. That's the thing I'm saying. Like, yeah, go throw at it, but ultimately it's still a 6'4" dude who has range and ball skills that has proven that at Notre Dame a ton and hasn't really been targeted a ton. So I don't know. Why am I mad? Because I'm just like excited about. I'm not mad. I'm happy. I'm just like, how do you attack this defense?
He's giddy. I like when he gets giddy.
I'm like empathizing. I'm empathizing with offensive coordinators. Like, how do I fucking beat this guy? Like, that's why I'm mad, because it's like it has to be frustrating facing this defense right now.
I think honestly, so let's just, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but if I was to say, what do you think would be the best way from an offensive game plan right now to do against this defense? Because I think it's be able to run the ball.
I just don't know how you do that.
Because the guys up front are too good. No, I get it, but it's just
I guess
they're not doing anything
my best answer is
special
to
in
run power
defense.
Power at where you can have a lead blocker attack a Jabbo. That's my best answer I can conjure up.
And he's actually been good against the run.
He's looked way better than I expected, but a lot of it has been him crashing backside.
Yeah,
they've been able to keep him backside. So I'm going to try and see if I can have him backside and attack him still. So run to the weak side, pull some guys to the weak side, some counter, some things like that. I don't know. I am jacked up. The Mike McDonald's going crazy, man. He's truly like him and DaCosta have developed a monster of a defense. And I'm like seeing what they're doing. Mina Kimes talked about it a little bit this week. I'm just seeing, I don't know what you do. Like, you can't just keep trying to nickel and dime them down the field. Otherwise, all of a sudden you're going to be wrong. Queen or Smith or Hamilton or someone's going to come drop into the post or come up and play rat as a robber, and they're just going to pick the ball off. So they're going to bait. That's what they did to Burrow. They baited him. They showed him that shell, said, yeah, you're in the red zone. Go throw it over the middle of the field. Watch. So you can't hold the ball. You can't run the ball. You can't, like, wherever you think I'm not going to do what everybody thinks I'm going to do. Like, you can't do what the Ravens want you to do, or you will lose. You have to be aggressive. You have to attack them. You have to throw at the sideline still. You have to attack over top. That's all I've got.
I love it. I just saw a question about the edge rotation. It sounds like
you're telling me now for the first time.
If Oweh's out this game, it sounds like Moon will be called up. So I'm expecting it's going to be similar to last week with Moon playing a little bit, but I would imagine it's going to be.
That's my guess. Robinson get in there too.
Yeah, and this is honestly Robinson played pretty well, but this is where Clowney was such an intriguing ad because he's such a snap eater as well. Like, he had years where he played 76, games where
he has incentives in his contract to do so. So he's happy to right now.
And he's looked good. Like, it doesn't look like he's wearing down. He's looked pretty solid. So, I mean, Clowney can kind of get in there and do that. And then obviously Ojabo may not be adding. We haven't really seen enough to say he's not adding the pass rush game that you want to see, but he's doing well enough against the run where he needs to that he's not a liability, I think. So I would imagine it'll be those two with Tavius and Moon factoring in very, very smallly. But moving on to the offense, kind of curious what you guys think about this, just because a lot of their runs in the run game has been on kind of big chunks. They haven't really moved the ball methodically on the ground. What are you guys kind of seeing in the run game? Is there any concerns? What do they need to do better? You are seeing more zone concepts like I think we all anticipated, but they're still running power at a high clip, which
higher than most teams still.
Different than what I saw from Todd Monken at Georgia. Not that he never did it, but they're definitely doing it more. And so that could just be part of the offensive coordinator transition where you still kind of have, guys that fit the skill sets that fit the former offensive coordinator. What are you seeing from the run game? What does it need to do better?
A lot of under center stuff, even like when Must gotten there, and they were running it pretty effectively, I think. And that was something that we had talked about going back the year before that, maybe even before that, honestly. It would be nice to diversify things a little bit. And it's funny because you watch the Colts come in and they're running a ton of pistol with Richardson. So it's kind of like maybe the same progression where they were doing that with Lamar early on in his career. So maybe that's just kind of the natural thing where once he's ready to accept a little bit more responsibility, and once he's ready to vary things up a little bit, you go to that under center stuff. And I really like what I've seen from it. Felt like they've got a lot of good stuff out of Gus in particular in it. Maybe I need to check the numbers on that, but it just feels like a little bit of a different look in that regard, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I think that, I'm right now, I'm just if I'm the Ravens, I'm pretty scared about my running back room again. Hill, not that he has some terrible injury, but my running back who uses his feet like a jackrabbit has a toe injury. That's not fun. That's probably not going to feel good for a while. If it does the rest of the season, who knows? We heard Jonathan Ogden, his thoughts on toes and that stuff. But suddenly it's like, all right, well, it's Gus's time to shine. It's the guy who, and he looks great. I think he looks great. He looks clean. He looks, the way he's hitting holes, the way he's setting up leverage and then following his blocks, looks great. I'm just scared shitless if I'm the Ravens that suddenly it's all of a sudden Melvin Gordon, Kenyon Drake, and a UDFA. So I think I don't know who's available. I'm sure somebody's got maybe James Conner. I don't know. Maybe, Taylor, there's this whole polarizing thing. Somebody, maybe a Saquon in a couple of weeks, maybe a Josh Jacobs in a couple of weeks. I just don't feel good about the state of the Ravens running back room. In terms of their run game, they're mixing up well. I think their guys are getting to the second level a little bit. They're not losing the battle at the line of scrimmage, I would say, in terms of being able to get some displacement. They mix things up, being able to go vertically versus laterally with inside zone, outside zone, mix in the power. Jake mentioned the under center stuff. Would like to see maybe some boots this game, a lot of heavy boot usage from there. I don't think we've seen that much. So this might be the game to run the ball, kind of maybe have a slow offensive start, unless Colts can't stop the run, and then start booting off of it, start waggling off of it, start doing some things to get Lamar in space, make that defense respect your ability to pull the ball out and slow down that pass rush that is pretty ferocious. And we've seen Gus Bradley, Jake and I talked about yesterday. Gus Bradley's played Lamar well a few times. He knows he's a solid plan. He has a nice stable of rushers, Buckner, Pay, Ebukam's one of the more underrated pass rushers in the NFL, I'd say, over the last few years. Pro guys, and then Stewart inside. They got some horses. Taven Bryan's a nice rotational player. So
they have 6 guys with 4+ pressures in the first 2 weeks.
They really don't. It's not like they have this deep. They're basically the opposite. They're the antithesis of the Ravens, where it's like the Ravens have I don't know how many guys that have rushed the passer 3 times, 10, 11. The Colts have like 7 guys that rush the passer. EJ Speed is a really athletic linebacker that shoots gaps and can go rush the passer a little bit. I think he had a sack last week, but I think he only has like 3 pass rushes and 1 sack, something like that. So it's going to be the front 4 coming after you. And maybe the reason Gus Bradley was able to defeat Lamar was because he was able to defeat Greg Roman's offense more so and less spread stuff against. Honestly, Eberflus and Gus Bradley aren't terribly dissimilar. They like that cover 3, middle of the field close structure, rush 4. And what did the Ravens do against Eberflus last time they played the Colts? Up-tempo, spread in the second half. They started moving the ball, spread things out, and be good to go. But in terms of the run game, I don't know. It looks clean but not explosive. I don't know how to put it.
Well, Morgan Moses is explosive when he's in space, exploding into DB's chest.
Him and Zeitler are probably going to – I feel like Zeitler is going to start rounding into form here next couple weeks too.
He looked really frustrated in that Cincy game. Yeah,
it's crazy how pissed off he looks.
Take some of that out on these Colts defenders.
Yeah. He's just – you can tell there was definitely some rust, something going on there. But definitely – pardon?
Contractual, maybe?
Maybe. Yeah, we know that was a thing, right? He wanted a new contract, and he basically got told, "We'll talk later, but no, right now." So that's going to be an interesting situation, especially, they're an injury away from being in trouble at the guard position. In addition to
and Cleveland spotting in there for him,
which could get interesting. And so obviously the pass game has been the focus. We're just seeing guys make plays, and that's honestly the biggest thing I've noticed. Is we saw that week 1 the over the shoulder catch by OBJ. Week 2 we see Nelson Aguilar catch that touchdown over the shoulder. It just felt like plays that in the past Ravens receivers have missed. I'm thinking of like that one shot in the Miami game early to Sammy Watkins where he just completely lost the ball in the end zone. Stuff like that. Like just these guys seem to keep making plays. What are you guys seeing from the wide receiver room? And how can they kind of attack banged up? I think they lost a couple guys, but I wouldn't say there's a lot of talent in this Indy DB room. I think it kind of creates an opportunity for them. How do you guys kind of see it?
I think Julian Blackmon's a talented defender, but I think it's kind of the situation we talk about Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen. When you have talent around you, it enables you to play to your skill set a little bit more and be aggressive. And I don't think there's enough talent or experience around him to really highlight him right now. I don't have the splits, Cole. I honestly didn't watch their defense a ton. I know Gus Bradley. I'm not surprised if he has started to shift into the modern too high shell stuff. I'm just not sure. I haven't looked at the numbers. Is that the case from what you saw?
I mostly watched the D line, so that's why I was hoping you guys could weigh in.
Yeah, I didn't watch their secondary a ton, honestly. I don't know. I'm not surprised if Gus.
They don't have talent, like we know that. Like Kenny Moore is actually banged up right now, so I mean, they got Tony Brown in the slot with Dallas.
They have some young inexperienced guys that are not like big name guys.
Guys that like I love Juju Brent's coming out, but is that a guy I want on Rashad Bateman early in his career? Probably not. Like it's just one of those situations where like Daryl Baker's their starter out there, and then they got Blackmon and Rodney Thomas as their safeties.
So a lot of inexperienced guys.
And it's not like a shot.
It's not like they have rookie Jalen Ramsey or some young guy that's like a Christian Gonzalez or something like that. So no disrespect to those guys, but we just don't really know who they are much and haven't seen them play a ton. And if Gus Bradley is going to keep running the Gus Bradley cover 3, the Dan Quinn cover 3, like I said, Eberflus cover 3, then where do you throw the ball? I'm seeing a lot of digs, a lot of dagger type concepts, a lot of Y cross, middle of the field, over the linebackers. And then if you want to do that, I mean, Zay Flowers is capable of beating angles over top, just like we saw in that Cincy game. They ran a cover 3 type look, and the safety came down to a middle of the field option in front of him, and then that opened up Flowers to just go fly over top. And the backside corner tried to rotate and get there, and honestly made a hell of an effort to, but couldn't get there. So
double coverage.
Yeah, double coverage. He was double covered. So with that, I think that you set up some of that dagger, some of those cross plays, some of those switch concepts. Start testing them, rotating and picking up on that, and then hit Andrews, hit Bateman over the middle field, hit Aguilar over the field. See if you can get a shot to maybe Bateman this week. I think you'd be foolish not to keep pushing Zay Flowers to make plays downfield. And if that gets a little bit of attention, then suddenly you've got Rashad Bateman, who we've seen in a more physical middle of the field role so far. The one thing I did see that was a little, I don't want to say concerning, Derek Clausen, I don't have it right in front of me. Derek Clausen's been charting for reception perception. I've expressed my love for Matt Harmon so much and what he does. Derek Clausen joined that top shelf QB charting and thoughts. Definitely go check that out, receptionperception.com. If you play fantasy football there, their subscriptions are worth it. It always helps every single year. But pretty much everything everything Lamar is throwing is in breaking. Pretty much everything he's throwing is in breaking. They haven't really had much success on outbreaking stuff. We've seen Odell with a couple outbreaking things last week, the week before, stuff like that. So it's a lot of in breakers. Curious if the Colts, really try to just crowd the middle of the field. But if they're going to play cover 3, I just don't know why. Lamar's not running the ball a ton, so you don't need 7-8 guys in the box right now. The run game's not that scary. I'm more scared of the Ravens' pass game than I'm of the run game, especially when you have dogs up front like the Colts do. So tough matchup.
Yeah, completely agree. And I mean, with the weather potentially impact of the wind, I think that gives the Ravens a bit of an advantage with what we've seen Zay do in the screen game. Not that you can, I would have said not that you can throw, 5-6 screens, but they did against Houston, and he literally caught 6 screens and did quite well with them.
Start getting other guys involved in that. Zay goes one way, you have a screen on the other side of the field.
Yeah. And let's wrap up here with some final thoughts. Keys to the victory. Just kind of curious, what do the Ravens need to do? Jake, let's start with you. What do the Ravens need to do to be successful on Sunday?
I would just say on defense, like front 7, keep doing what you're doing and control whatever they try to do in the running game. I don't even know what it's going to be, but if you can do that, I just think Gardner Minshew, even if he has time in the pocket, like it's just going to be tough for him, especially if the weather is difficult, to really make plays in the passing game. And I think they've got some size at receiver. I don't know if they have a ton of skill necessarily. I liked Alec Pierce. I love Michael Pittman, obviously, but it just feels like there's a little bit of a hodgepodge there. And as much as the Ravens are kind of dealing with the taxi squad at cornerback right now, those guys have played really, really well. And it hasn't just been like the junkyard dog around the line of scrimmage stuff that we've seen from Ronald Darby. They've made plays in coverage too, whether it's Rocky Sin against Jamar Chase, whether it's Darby making some plays against Jamar Chase in other situations like Spenny mentioned on our podcast. Those guys they're playing pretty well right now. So just kind of keep it rolling on defense, but in particular, key in on that run game, make them try to throw it. I think you'll be able to get out of there with a W.
Spenny?
Don't fumble the football. Don't put the ball on the ground one time. Yeah. Melvin Gordon probably going to get some carries in this game. Lamar Jackson has put the ball on the ground. One of them called back, but 3 times so far? The only way the Colts stay in this game is if you give them the football in your own territory. I think the Ravens are going to fumble. That's my prediction. I think they lose a ball in their own territory somewhere in the second or third quarter that keeps the Colts in this game. And I mean, defensively, like I said, I don't know what you do. You have to try to throw the ball at those safeties. I think if Kyle Hamilton and Geno Stone get tested over top, Minshew can't really. It's like not a strong-armed guy that can zip a ball into a tight window. He has touch.
He throws a good rainbow ball. Like he's got some touch, but he cannot push it in the way that like high-level
hit a guy so that they don't have to track the ball as long and are able to run after the catch, things like that. So, Kyle Hamilton, Geno Stone, they test you over top. Go make a play on the football, but I think just not putting the football, Lamar Jackson will throw some interceptions here and there, whatever. Just don't fumble the ball. Just really, especially if it's wet out there, kickoff is supposed to be right around when the rain lets up. We'll see what happens with that, but do not put that football on the ground. And I think that if the Ravens don't put the ball on the ground, and hey, maybe they do and don't even lose it, but I'm going to say if the Ravens don't fumble a football, they cover the spread, maybe blow the Colts out. If they do have a stupid turnover in their own territory, that's what keeps this game close. I think that's the huge area to look here.
And I'd say for mine, it's just control the line of scrimmage, because I think that's where the Ravens have had the most success. When Lamar's been comfortable, he's been able to do his thing. When they've been able to take away a team's running ability, they're just able to, like they took away Pierce, then they took away Mixon. Those big boys up front doing the dirty work. It's worked really well, keeping Queen and Smith very clean so that they can run around and do good things at linebacker. So I think win the trenches, win the game. Simple as that. So we're going to wrap up there. So as you guys know, there's 48 of you in here currently. We'll be doing this every Friday. It might be all 3 of us, might just be 2 of us, but we're going to be doing this just a little lunch with the boys. So thank you guys so much for coming in. Be sure to check out Jake and Spenny. Check out their preview from last night. I watched it this morning. It was great. So jumbo set over on the Exit 52 podcast. Good stuff going on there with oh my God, Banks and
Banks, RDT, and Taylor.
Yeah, Jesus. I should have wrote that down. So that's all I have for you guys today. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Peace out, everyone.